Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic podcast, episode 142 today. And I'm here with my guest, Li Jingjing. How are you doing, Li, today?
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Beijing. I'm great. Thank you for inviting me to appear on your show.
It's a pleasure having you. So, Li, what have you been up to today? You been up to anything much?
Today, it's not much because, well, I mean, 2023 is a very busy year for me, for many journalists here, for many people who are interested in building a shared community for the world. So I was trying to chill a little bit, relax a little bit from the very intensive work schedules last year. Because, last year it was the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative and
Yeah.
so many big international events. We have friends, we have from all over the world visiting China last year. So I was working nonstop, going to all major events, making friends with people from all cultures around the world, and see this very historical transition of the world, I would say. So today, not so much because I was trying to relax a little bit and prepare for 2024. I'm sure there are many more major events will taking place in
Oh, it's going to
2024.
be crazy this year, especially with American politics and Western politics. But China's going to thrive more. Same with Russia. So, Lee, what would you say out of out of the events you went to last year? What was your favorite event that you went to, and what would you say out of all the events had the most tastiest food?
In 2023,
Yeah,
um, there's so many, but I think the BRI forum, the forum that celebrates the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative, which took place in October, was one major event because we saw 4,000 guests from around the
wow,
world, from over 200 countries came here. And what did they do? They were meeting each other, making new friends, sign more deals, sign more contracts. So a lot of things are going on just in October. And it's interesting because um, the same month you see thousands of people from around the world leaders of international institutions, investors, businessmen around the world came here to meet in Beijing to look for cooperations, to look for how to have more win-win cooperation and how to just to build a common prosperity. Yet on the other side, the leaders were flying to other parts of the world to discuss how to bomb another country, bomb more children. So I mean,
yeah.
on two sides of the world, completely different things are happening. But so October, I would say that forum was one major things because you see the world is changing.
Yeah, it is. It's changing a lot. It is. Lee, can you hear me? Is the internet okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah,
How about
no,
me?
the world is it is changing. We are definitely living in the multipolar era, and I think the Belt and Road Initiative has done so much for countries in Africa, especially when I saw the video how you talked about someone from Tanzania. So,
Mm,
speaking of that, Lee, tell me. We'll get back to the Belt and Road Initiative in a minute. So, tell me
okay.
about yourself, Lee. You've been a journalist in China for 10 years. Like,
Hmm.
what made you want to make a YouTube video about talking to people about China and stuff? And what got you into journalism as a kid? And also, what would you say was like your role model in politics, like your role model growing up, like to
Mm.
encourage you to be a journalist? Go ahead.
So, being a journalist has always been a dream of mine since I was a kid. And I've been telling the stories to my other friends because I remember when I was in fifth grade in elementary school, when the time when teachers ask you, what do you want to be in the future? Some will say
Yeah.
policeman, some will say scientists. And I said a journalist. And I've been following this path my both my master degree, bachelor degree are all in journalism. And after graduation, my all my work or in the field of journalism. I worked for CGTN, and before that, I worked for another media in China as well. So it's what I'm passionate about. It was my dream. It's still my dream, and I've been doing this for my entire career for more than 10 years now. Um, and why I decided to make more YouTube videos, I think so. There are some turning points, kind of like the stories you told me about what you saw in Hong Kong. So before, before, like in previous time, I was just thought I'm a journalist. I have a platform, which is the company that I work for. I can tell stories to people. And then I think there are two events that changed me. In 2019, the riots in Hong Kong is the turning point for me and also the turning point for many people, Chinese or expats living in China, because they saw I have so many friends from Hong Kong. They are local Hong Kongers. This told me they saw horrible riots took place in front of their apartments, in front of their house. And then when they go home, they turn on the TV and watch CNN. And CNN are showing completely different things.
Yeah.
So it was the story that resonated with a lot of people, and I felt the anger too. And Nancy Pelosi said, "The riots taking place in our country is some beautiful sight to behold." And when riots taking place in her country, she just called them rioters, and this is like, I cannot put up with
The
this. Blah, blah, blah.
the
Yeah,
hypocrisy is
exactly.
absolutely ridiculous, isn't it, eh?
Yeah. And that also made me realize there's so much misinformation on Western mainstream media. They selectively, intentionally to show a different story. But and then in early 2020, the uh, coronavirus, COVID-19 broke out in Wuhan. So Wuhan was the first city that it was under lockdown, and I was among the first group of reporters that was sent to Wuhan to report the pandemic when the world, nobody in the world knows what COVID-19 could do to human. It was a scary time, and
Oh,
I was among the,
everywhere was confused. Like here in New Zealand too, that was the same thing.
yeah,
We didn't know, like, and it didn't help Lee because you had some people were saying like, oh, it's a biological weapon, it has AIDS in it, or Ebola. Some like far right conspiracy theorists were really going off. It's just ridiculous. It was a sad
yeah.
time, it was a really hard time,
Yeah, exactly. And that was unprecedented in human history. And it was the most deadly version of COVID-19. At that time, when I first went there, I did see many people who passed away within few weeks.
Mm.
1 or 2 weeks contracting the virus. It was a deadly version. So I totally understand why the lockdown was put on this a big mega city like Wuhan. So I was a reporter there, and I interviewed many doctors, nurses, recovered patients, and family members of victims. So I have so much um, support and the sympathy for the people in Wuhan, how strong they are, how they are trying to pull together to defeat this uh, pandemic or disaster. But then that was the time when we saw most racist terms, racist comments, slurs, misinformation spread on platforms like Twitter. So there was so much anger built in me. I was in the epicenter, saw how people are pulling together, defeat the virus. And yet on the others on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, all kinds of misinformation, disinformation, and racist terms called on Chinese people, on all Asian people. So these two incidents made me realize there like people don't I mean the West probably need more platforms to get information, because apparently several Western mainstream media are not going to share the information, will not share the voices like ours. So since I'm the reporter in the front line, since I'm the Chinese who can talk to local people, since I understand both Chinese and English, how about I can be the messenger to build the gap between China and the rest of the world and provide information to those who are interested, who are genuinely interested in understanding what's going on in China. So that's the thing that encouraged me to become very active on social networks, just because I noticed there's lack of information about China, like lack of real information about China on Western platforms. So I combined my interests in journalism and my ability of knowing the two languages. So that's what I'm doing, being a bridge.
Mm. So, Lee, out of all like historic figures from China, like whether it was a leader in the dynasties or presidents of China, who would you say like is your favorite like leader of China of all time, and why?
Oh, there are so many great leaders in China. Oh, I probably it's so hard to choose one. It's so hard to choose just one person to support in any area. But I would say, really, our current president, President Xi Jinping, is really a great leader. And I know Western media has been demonized China's leaders. They always do, no matter which leader is the leader, and they will try their best to demonize them. The thing is, for example, President Xi Jinping has so much support from the people here because he changed China, changed our lives. And there are so many great leaders, like Chairman Mao Zedong as a revolutionary inspiration for us. So, and there are so many other leaders as well. They all made policies so great, changed the nation on different aspects. Um, it's so hard to choose just one. I'm sorry, I cannot just choose one.
You know, one thing about China that really a lot of people praises, that's one of the greatest achievements in human history, is how the main party of China and Xi Jinping has also done the poverty alleviation thing, which has lifted China out of absolute poverty. So tell me more about that, the poverty alleviation thing. How is it done? Like, how did China manage to pull that out? How do they like manage to like fix the the poor regions in China because they're very isolated from a lot of the world. Like, how did they manage to? How did they manage to make a country that's full of 1.4 billion people to fight absolute poverty? Like, how does this system of zero poverty alleviation work, and how is it structured? And how did Xi Jinping manage to do that so successfully? How?
Okay, so I probably can share some of my personal stories before I share my observations in China's poverty alleviation. For example, to those who have watched my videos before, you know what I look like. And I studied in the UK before, and I was fortunate enough uh, to be trained in different cultures. So basically, you know what I look like now. But when I was a kid, living in Hebei province, in Heilongjiang province, I was a malnourished kid. My parents didn't have enough food, nutritious food to feed me, and there was not enough protein in my food. So I was malnourished. I had weak bones. I didn't grow taller. And now, I'm in my 30s. Within like or 30 years, now I'm overnourished. I have too much food to eat on a daily basis. I had to worry how to lose weight. This is the change of my lifetime. And when I was a kid, there was no flushing toilets. And no flushing toilets and no fancy apartments. No, and if I travel to a neighboring province, It take a day and a half by train. Just two neighboring provinces, very close, but it takes a day and a half by train. But now it only takes 3 hours by train. There's some changes in my personal life within 30 years. From malnourished, had no enough food to eat, to now I have too much food to eat, to worry about how to lose weight, to from inconvenient transportation to very convenient, super fast transportation that can help me to travel to every corner of this country. And this is some of my stories, but then after I grew up, I interact with people, Chinese people from all corners of China, from different provinces, especially provinces that were less developed. And I realized my story was nothing compared to their stories. For example, it took me a day and a half by train to visit a nearby province. But my college classmate, who is from Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, we were studying in Henan province, central China. She lived in northwest China, and she chose not to return home during the winter vacation. Why? Because it took her a week by train and probably bus and cattle cart combined to return her hometown, a village in Xinjiang. A week, single journey. And the winter vacation is only 1 month long, so it would take too much time for her for a return trip. So she decided not to return home during the winter vacation. But now, the flights from Beijing to Urumqi only takes 5 hours. And you know how many airports are there in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region? The Western media
How many?
said there was so much repression. This like in Xinjiang, but Xinjiang alone has 28, if not more, because they are building several more. So there are almost over 20 airports just in one region, one province of China.
Oh, there is a lot of airports in China, especially when you look at the airport in Hong Kong. It's
Yeah,
so modern. The airports in
yeah.
like Shanghai, Beijing are just so, and it's incredible. Anyways, like you were saying.
Yeah, the thing is, things are changing the living standards of local people. They are building. They already have 28 airports. They are building 8 more, and there are roads connecting to every village, every household. So these things can help people get out of their remote villages. They will no longer to stay isolated. They can be connected with the rest of the country, with the rest of the world, and to have better access to education, to employment. So this is the changes to me and all the 1.4 billion people living in China in the past 3 decades. So there's the real examples of how our life have been changed. I think so many people living in the West probably don't understand the dramatic change in our lifetime because West has been developed much earlier and faster. You had flushing toilets, you had running water, you living good conditions for a long time ago. But those things are not accessible when we were a kid. But now you see, China is economy is number 2 in the world. Have many renovations in terms of in many areas. China is a leading force, and no country in the world has made such achievement before. So in terms of poverty alleviation, so in the past 4 decades, more than 800 million people were lifted out of extreme poverty, and the world poverty reduction could be done was largely because of China lifted 800 million people out of extreme poverty. And that requires so much efforts from generations of people, but not just efforts. That requires wisdom in governance, in developing policies, because you know I'm so fortunate that I'm a journalist in China. So I read policies, I read articles, and then I can go to uh, different grounds, different places to see how those policies being carried out. So when I travel to every corner of China, I understand how the level, the challenges of poverty in China is different. Each province in China it was poor due to a different reason. Some provinces was with the geographic conditions are too difficult. Some places lack of natural resources. Some places are with harsh environmental conditions like Tibet, high altitude lacks oxygen. So each province was the poverty was caused by different reasons. So that requires different measures to solve these issues. So I would probably, I mean, you asked me how did they do it. I cannot simplify it in one or two sentences, but I would say one thing is so important is the targeted policies. Targeted policies means like there's no one policy that fits all. Like the central government design one policy to lift people out of poverty, then it fits every provinces, every villages. No, if you go to every province or every village in a province, you will see the policies are designed differently because they have to see the uh, reasons that cause this village. I mean, for example, I went to a province in Guangxi, and the members of the CPC, Communist Party of China, they went to the village, live with the villagers, understand what caused the village to be poor, and they come out with the specific plans to develop this region. For example, this village in Guangxi I went to, the government officials went there and find out, oh, the reason that caused this poverty is this village is so deep trapped in the mountains. They need to build more roads so the local villagers can bring the tangerines out of their village, and the buyers can also go to their village to buy the products. And the second is they find out the local farmers, they grow tangerines, they make a living by growing tangerines, yet they don't have the scientific knowledge to make it more productive. So they invited more scientists to teach the farmers how to better grow these products, so you have more fruits, more productive. So I mean, you make less effort by making more products and more money. And the government officials write letters to the central government what they need to do in the village, so the government also allocate more money to this village to build roads first, and then bring experts, scientific experts here to train the local farmers. And then the government officials also invite more investors, companies, buyers to see you need tangerines to make products. How about come here to our villages? And when the investors came here, the roads have already been built. The tangerines are growing much better than before. They want to buy the products and make into new products. So I mean, they had come out with very specific targeted plans to solve this village problems. In another province, in another village, is a different plan. So it requires generations of people to genuinely want to make people's life better and design the policies with wisdom. And this, our leaders may change. In the past few decades, we have different president,
Yeah.
but the goal has never changed. For the past 40 years, the goal is consistent. No matter what leaders in position, they carry this long-term goal because their long-term goal is to serve the people and raising the living standards of people. So they're very consistent and always change their policies when the situation develop into a new phase. So in the past 4 decades, their goal is to raise the living standards, but each phase comes with different challenges. They'll always adjust their policies to make it suit the current situation, make it work. So that's what I saw. I mean, some people in the West are so struck. Oh, why you Chinese people support your government, support your leaders? That's why, because we experience the change of our life. Our living standards have been raised dramatically within a short period of time. 4 decades, no countries in the world have ever done that. That's why we support it. We are the one living in it and experience the change. So Well, long story short, I hope that I answered your question.
Yeah. That's a very interesting story. I think the Western media, it's so ridiculous how they lie so much about China, and it's absolutely outrageous, especially when you look at the poverty crisis in America right now that's getting worse and the inflation problem in the West. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, Li Jingjing, I want to ask you this. So,
Hmm.
tell me, a lot of Westerners are very confused of how China's political system works. So, tell me, how does China's whole process, people's democracy work? How do elections work in China? How does the president get selected? Is there really freedom of speech in China? Like as much as the West says there's not, is there really freedom of speech in China? Like how do the elections work in local level, and how does the president of China get picked? And how would you say the China political system is much better than the Western political system, which some people have actually said before?
Mm. Well, the question you just asked, a good question, but how can I answer that within a few, within our live stream? So okay, I try to simplify it. But first, is there freedom speech up here? Of course, there's freedom speech, and I find it hilarious when some people outside of China, even if they have
Especially
never
in
been
the
to China,
Chinese constitution, when it says
yeah,
freedom of speech. Sorry for interrupting, but especially in the Chinese constitution, it says freedom of speech, freedom of press.
yeah, it's interesting. I heard so many people, uh, for example, during the riots in 2019, some people from Hong Kong, when they crossed the border, came to Shenzhen or Guangzhou, they said, "Whoa, I can finally say what I want to say. I feel the freedom of speech here." You know, people from Hong Kong, after the cross border and came to Shenzhen, said, "Oh, finally I can enjoy my freedom of speech." Because when in Hong Kong, if they criticize the rioters, they will be attacked. They will
Yeah,
be bullied, cyber bullied like online, or they will get death threats by
I know.
rioters,
It's
right?
no good.
So
I
and so yeah.
As someone who lived in Hong Kong, Li Jing, same thing here. When I was just trying to be peaceful and say, "Oh, the police," I was a different political person then, but I was just saying, "Hey, the police are just trying to make peace. They're different than the police in America. They don't go around shooting people." And I got death threats too, and it was just so silly. It was just absolutely ridiculous. It
Right?
was,
Yeah.
you know,
I
because
mean,
a lot of the pro Hong Kong protesters obviously are westernized. But yeah, sorry, Lee. Sorry for going off topic. Like you were mentioning of how the system works in China and
yeah,
how politics works. So go ahead. Yeah,
but I like it's important what you shared. It's because the story happened to so many people in Hong Kong. I mean, if the West call them pro democracy people, but how come they don't allow other Hong Kongers or other citizens in Hong Kong to to criticize their violent behaviors? And how come those people they can truly experience the freedom of speech when they come here to the mainland? So that is not just one person's story. So many people said the same. And a few weeks ago, I met a Palestinian who was traveling in China, and she
mm,
said she was canceled by she lived in a Western country. She said she was canceled by the university, the institution that she worked for, a media not inviting her to speak. And she said, "Oh, I experienced so much freedom of speech in China because no one gonna cancel her." And actually, she find Chinese people here really understand the situation. Really understand why that happened between Israel and Palestine, and no one is canceling her. So I mean, all these people said, "Whoa, I experienced so much freedom when I'm actually in Chinese mainland." So that's the perspective I share with other people. When you said there's no freedom of speech in China, I was just laughing their face. And you can criticize, of course. And how and when Chinese people, when we have some people have issues with, for example, the local government or some issues, they have ways to bring their opinions to the government level and let it solved. Just last week, I saw uh, or advertisement or just an announcement on WeChat, the software we use, the WeChat, like it's a government website says, if the farmers who are experiencing having problems getting their salaries paid by their leader, here's a way to tell your local government. And there's a page on Alipay website where you can report your issues and you want your government to get involved to help you get your salaries payment back. So this is the way. Tell us what your experience, because sometimes the independent contractors, they probably hire a bunch of farmers to build a building, build some construction work, and this contractor probably are bullying the farmers and not paying them. So how to get those problems solved? If you're bullied, if you experience an unfair treatment, here's the way to tell your government, and someone specialist will help you to solve that. I mean, there are ways to deal with your problems. And sometimes when I meet people from, say, from America, when they say, if we don't like this, that we can protest, we can say, like, we can do this, we can say whatever we want about the government or whatever. But do things get changed?
No,
So
they don't.
like,
They don't.
right? You protest, you can say, use all kinds of slurs calling your government, but your problems are not being solved. No one is dealing your problems. You're still being discriminated. But here, your problems actually get solved. You have issues with the government, or some you saw some issues in the society. There are ways to solve your problems. So but you don't get to hear the stories on Western mainstream media. So in terms of the governance, because here we call it the whole process people's democracy. I know it's a term that probably difficult for people to understand, and there's a whole book to explain China's system. But I can give you an example how it works. For example, every year, every March, there's annual most important political meeting. We call it two sessions. Two sessions because there are two sessions taking place every March, and it is so every year, deputies from all fields, all provinces will come here together in Beijing at the Great Hall of the People to have meetings, to pass new laws, revise old laws, bring up new issues, and discuss whether those issues can be put into laws. So every March, that will take place. But in March, when I'm sorry for coughing because
No, it's okay.
I was recovered from a flu, so there's some lots of symptoms. So I may cough from time to time. So, but in March, when people come to Beijing, it's already the final biggest meeting that people meet at the central level to deal with this issue. Before that, the two sessions took place from village level, county level, city level to provincial level. So all these issues have been brought up from the grassroots to the city level to provincial level, and then the provincial deputies will bring all these issues, selected the most urgent issues, and bring that to the central level, the March meeting in Beijing. So, and then at the meeting every year, around 2,000 to 3,000 deputies, delegates from all fields, like no matter you are from politics, farmers, tech industry, business industry, sports industry, military, all of them will come here together to have meetings and to discuss. Each province will have their meeting as well to discuss, okay, these are the most important urgent issues that we need to solve, and let's pass this law. And some probably are not that urgent and won't be included in the law this year, but some deputies will continue to bring these issues every year, and eventually some of them will be put into law and some probably will never be. But that's because of that need to be decided by a whole group of delegates from this province or from the country level. And last year in March, I interviewed a deputy from Shandong province in East China. So she's a teacher in the village in Shandong province. She has been a deputy to the central level for how many years? 12 years. For 12 years, and she just started a new term from the last year. And in the past 12 years, she said most of her suggestions and advice has been included in provincial law, or some of them are put into local regulations. So probably around 20 of her suggestions have been put into the provincial law. And because she's a teacher from the village, so all her suggestions, advice are education related. And I asked her, what suggestions you brought up to the government in the past 12 years? She said, first, it was about when she just started term like 12 years ago, it was about how to bring more facilities, educational facilities, how to build better classrooms for village students. And then second term, it started to about how to bring how to increase the salaries for teachers who devoted themselves in villages, helping village kids, how to improve the salaries so you can keep the talents stay in grassroots level and help village students. And that year, last year, her suggestions became how to bring more mental health classes to village students. So based on the suggestions she brought up in the past 12 years, you see the upgrade of the village education. First, it was just the facilities, how to build a bigger classroom, how to bring a computer to a village, to now how to attract more talents in local schools. And now she's worrying about the mental health, the psychology of village students. And most of her suggestions have been incorporated into local regulations. Some not passed, but those urgent, those suggestions that matters have been successfully implemented. And that's one example of how how the government works. We have delegates, we have deputies that brought issues from their village, their province, their area, their field of expertise to the government level to be solved. So that's I'm simplifying this how it works. So some outside of China, some in the West think Chinese people don't have a say about their country, about their life, but we do. And that's how it works. We brought the people who actually qualified to be deputies, to be government leaders, and their goals, their policies are always focused on how to raise the living standards of people, how to protect and safeguard the interest of the majority of the people. And sometimes it probably means sacrifice the interest of a minority group of people, but it's the whole policy will bring the benefits to the majority of the people.
Yeah. How also another thing is you want to mention is how China has multiple parties, but it's like how the parties all cooperate together. There's not like one supreme party. And I think one of the reasons why Li is they say China's political system is better than America's and Britain's of the West is these parties aren't competing each other. Like it's like the main party right now, sorry if I butchered this, the CPC is the ruling party. Even though you've got other parties in China, they're not competing against each other. They're there for the people to help the people.
I'm sorry, what was your question? Huh?
So I was just saying like how China has many different parties, how like those parties, are there together. How exactly would you say the party system works in China, and like with it allegedly being what is your thoughts on people saying allegedly it is a one-party state?
It's not a one-party state. We have 8 parties. And I wrote it in an article previously, and I can share it on my Twitter if anyone are interested to understand. So there are 8 parties in China, and Communist Party of China, the CPC, is the ruling party. But I mean, that doesn't mean the other parties are not running the not like how to say participating in the management of the country. So like that's why during the two sessions, there's a political consultative conference. One of the sessions is called the political consultative conference, and that's during that session, delegates from those parties, 8 parties, will have meetings together as well, and they also bring suggestions on their respective areas. And when the CPC discuss and design a new law, new regulations, CPC will consult the other 8 parties as well, and with the other people from other fields as well. So I mean, it's not just one dictates another. It's a consultative conference. They work together and understand the problem from different fields. Well, it's a little bit complicated because to explain a government structure is probably complicated. It probably cannot be answered within a few minutes in the interview. But I can share an article that I wrote last year during the two sessions. I try to explain some of the basic knowledge about the governance here in China. I can share the
Did you
link
want
with
to?
you.
Sure, you can. Did you want to share it on the screen or just keep talking about something else?
How do I do it?
We can just
Oh,
I think you've done a good job explaining that. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We will.
sorry,
Just more
I'm so
people.
new to StreamYard. Not
It's
sure how to
all
do it
good,
yet, but I
Lee.
can
It's
send
all
you the
good.
link later.
It's all good. Don't worry about it. But
Yeah.
like how, oh yeah, people actually can share on the chat. You can just say it. But also speaking of that, Lee, many people say that if you look at the United States Western system, in what way would you say China's political system is better than America's?
Mm, I'm not sure which is better. It's not that simple, but I think China's system is definitely working for China, and probably every country. The thing is, every country is adopting a different system, and every country is adopting a different a kind of democracy. The thing is, I heard so much of people outside China criticizing China's system, but apparently China's system is working because it raised our living standards. It made the country's economy grow faster than any country in the world in the past few decades. It made an economic miracle. So it's working, and it suits China's specific cultural, historical situations. I don't think it will suit other countries. And China's leaders has been very clear. Uh, China is not seeking to export its development method to other countries either. And we can share our experience, our know-how, how we made it, but other countries cannot just copy it. Every country has to adapt, find their own way of development, find the best solution to suit them. So America has, I mean, government is. I have my opinions and my criticism to the system as well, but I think uh, it's become something. It's becoming something weird. I'm not sure it's still a democracy. America looks like a plutocracy because
Yeah.
apparently it's the majority of the American people's lives are not getting better. They're getting worse and worse. And the elites, the rich people are getting richer and richer. That's if they let it happen, continue to happen, the government, the country will collapse. Because I think the point of the government is running the country effectively, and you are raising the living standards of the people. But for example, just 2 months ago, during the APEC, I traveled to America. And I traveled to America before, but within the few years, I saw the dramatic changes within a few years. And last time I was in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. Those two cities, honestly, are very beautiful, fancy houses, fancy buildings, and you will have a wonderful time living in America if you are rich,
Yep, that's true.
right? And what's shocked us the most is the number of homelessness on the streets and the drug abuse people on the streets. The San Francisco is the richest city in California. Yet the number of homelessness is crazy. I've been to some of the world's least developed nations. Yet I've never seen such crazy scene in the least developed countries. The impoverished people in America is on another level. They are not just poor, they are hopeless. I went to other underdeveloped countries. People may be impoverished compared to Western citizens, yet they are happy. They know they can change their life through working. So they have lights in their eyes. But those people I saw on the streets of San Francisco is they're doomed, they're hopeless. And seeing people doing drugs on the streets out in the open, and seeing people mentally damaged people because of the drugs walking on the streets, and people just pretend they don't exist. That's crazy. So I'm not sure America is still a democracy now. It looks like a plutocracy.
Oh,
And
it is probably the most corrupt country in the world right now. It is messed up what is going on there at the moment. So Li Jingjing, talking about that, you right? Is everything okay?
yeah, so I'm sorry. From time to time, I probably will cough. That's the symptoms of the
Oh, that's
flu.
symptoms. Sorry, I thought. That's all good. Bless you, by the way.
Mm.
So I was just wondering, going back to that, the Belt and Road Initiative. So tell me, what would you say, like when you see the Belt and Road Initiative, you see all the success it's done with the African nations like Ethiopia, Tanzania, and like how China's helped Laos and Cambodia rebuild, especially after America did all the bombings to Laos and Cambodia too back in the 70s and all that. What would you say, and especially how China's helping a lot, especially Pakistan, the power plant that they built in Pakistan, which I saw you do a video, the CPEC power plant in Pakistan, that's very good. That's changed that
Mhm.
region of Pakistan a lot. What would you say in the 10 years, the Belt and Road Initiative, what would you say the greatest achievements the Belt and Road Initiative has done? But what would you say, though, has been its greatest fail? What would you say, though, it needs to improve on? And what would you say are the greatest achievements the Belt and Road Initiative has done? And what do you
Mm.
think, sorry, what do you think the Belt and Road Initiative would be like if all the world decided to implement its type of idea?
I think the greatest achievement is it will bring economic development to all these developing nations. And when there's economic development, there's peace. So you see, now the Belt and Road Initiative has reached its 10th year. And now there are 150 countries have joined the BRI. Well, it's important to note that all these participating 150 participating countries voluntarily to join this project. It's not forced by any power. It's not if they don't want to join. There's no color revolution. There's no regime change. There's no assassination to their nations. So it's important to understand why these countries, 150 countries, voluntarily want to join the Belt and Road Initiative. It must brought some benefits to their countries, right? So it's important that to note all majority of these participant countries are developing nations. the former colonies of Western imperialism, those nations in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, who suffered from centuries of imperialism, being exploited, plundered. And Western media or experts keep telling these nations, don't work with China. China is just trying to exploit you, and they
Especially
will.
the debt trap myth that Western
Yeah,
media outlets like to put, you know?
yeah. They keep telling these nations like this is you need to do. Don't trust China. Like those countries don't got to make their own decisions. They know what's good for them. And if BRI is so bad, okay, let's see what Western dominations have brought to those nations. In the past few decades, hundreds of years under Western dominance, under Western imperialism, these countries have no space, no freedom, no rights to develop. Um, so, but before they had no choice because how many coup we saw in African nations, how many regime change we saw in African nations. If these countries refuse to follow the Western rule, they will be assassinated. So they had no choice but to follow the Western dominance. But the Western dominance only brought poverty, exploitations to their countries. But now, after joining the Belt and Road Initiative, and I'm not speaking on behalf of those countries, and I'm quoting some of the opinions and the people in Africa, in Latin America, told me. Uh, so they said, we we know what's imperialism because we experience it, and what China is doing is definitely not imperialism. And we chose China voluntarily. This China gave us choices. It's not forced upon us. And if the West think we're so stupid that we cannot choose our own friends, they are just being racist and think we are stupid. We can only be exploited. And then when you go to those participating countries, you see the infrastructures that brought to those countries by BRI. You probably will start to understand why these countries want to join the
Yeah,
BRI.
like Ethiopia, Rwanda. Rwanda's one. You
Yeah,
also look at Nicaragua, Chile, well, not Chile, Venezuela has been helped. Cuba's been helped by China. Also Iran, Syria has also been helped. China's been helped. Yeah, it's a lot of countries, a lot. Especially Pakistan.
yeah,
How the power plant in Pakistan. How that's given a lot of people, and how China has helped build. Airports in Pakistan and also African nations free. It's brilliant. Especially how
yeah.
China's helped South Africa a lot too. It's amazing.
You mentioned Pakistan. Last year in September, I traveled to Pakistan, Turkey, Greece, Tanzania in 1 month. You know, when I ask local people, all of them said one same thing to me, whether they are from Turkey, whether they are from Pakistan, Greece, or Tanzania. One thing they said, uh, China was the only country that came to help us when no one else wanted to help us. So why those we mentioned the power plant that I visited. That was the first project of the CPEC, China Pakistan Economic Corridor, that was built 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, when Pakistan was experiencing economic crisis, no country came to help. So China was the only country came to help, to build the economic corridor, brought more energy power plants to this country. Greece was the same thing. The West had so angry that China bought the port, Paris port in Greece, a very crucial port that has hundreds of years of history, a very key port in Europe. They're so mad that a Chinese company is controlling a European port. Yet they said the same thing. We were experiencing economic crisis. China's company was the only company that came to buy this port. Tanzania was the same thing. I went to the Tazara Railway. It was the first railway that China ever help to build in Africa. It was built in 1970s. In 1970s, when African nations are battling for their national independence from colonists, the Zambia was so need a railway to export their copper out of the country, but the colonizers are not forbidding Zambia to use those ports. And so Tanzania and Zambia needed a railway, so they went to United States for help. They went to UK for help. They went to Soviet Union for help. But no, all these countries didn't want to help those countries because they don't see it will bring enough interest for them. So China was the only country came to invest. So if all this West are so mad about China, they think China is so bad, they can help those developed nations much better. How come in the past hundreds of years, the West didn't bring any infrastructures to these developed nations? How come the Western dominance didn't help these developed nations to grow? How come China was the only country that came to help when there's not enough financial benefits for any investors to see? So I mean, this is the basic difference between BRI and the Western dominance. It brought infrastructure that can bring tangible benefits in the future. It probably won't bring benefits in the short term because infrastructure, the railway, ports, airports, they need it will bring tangible benefits probably 10 years later, 20 years later, because it boosts the productivity of the country. And when the productivity is raised, those people can stand on their own feet. They will no longer suffer from exploitation. They are giving the rights to develop. So I mean, I think that the biggest achievement for BRI in 10 years will be bringing common prosperity to everyone.
So, Li Jingjing, obviously, I love to talk more to you, but we said we would do this for an hour. Before we finish up, here's a fun thing for you. What is your predictions for 2024? So, what is your predictions for China going forward? What is your predictions for China, Russia, and the multipolar world? And how do you think China will, become bigger and stuff? What is your predictions for Western Europe? And what is your predictions for Israel, Palestine? And what is your predictions for America? Do you think America is going to go to civil war, or do you think this year is just going to? So yeah, what is your 5 predictions? You can make up some like fun prediction if you want, and some realistic ones. Go ahead. What is your predictions?
From my point of view, the East, Asia, is definitely rising. The West is declining. There's no doubt from my point of view. And the West is experiencing troubles in all aspects, financially, economically, and the internal problems are rising exponentially. And if the leaders from the West are not able to deal with these internal problems, it will collapse. But that's the problem that need Westerners to solve by themselves. And China, together with the whole Asia, is rising economically, financially, and even in terms of green development. Asia and China is now leading in almost all green technology. And there's so many innovations taking place in China, in Asia every day. And this is, I think that's not Asia replacing the West. Asia is just returning to the global stage because Asia has long been the number 1, number 2 on the global stage for a really long time in the history. And 2024 will be the 75th anniversary of the founding of People's Republic of China. So 2024 is a big year for China. It's the year of dragon, our zodiac. Dragon is the only mythical totem in the 12 zodiac of China. So today is the year of Chinese dragon. We call Long. Chinese loan. And 2024 is the 75th anniversary of the founding of People's Republic of China. It's definitely a big year for China. And I can tell whoever is listening, China is not looking for dominance. China is not looking for to dominate the world. If I would say what made China successful in the past few decades is China's leaders, Chinese people in every industry is focusing on developing themselves. We have a saying is like a human can win the, how to translate that? 人定胜天. 天 means the sky or the spirit or the god of the universe. But we have a saying is man can always win the god or the sky or the spirit in the universe because we believe in our own efforts. So China has been, decades ago, people said China cannot renovate. China will never compete with the rest. China's made in China means cheap products that have horrible quality. But now, decades later, things have completely changed. So, in the past few decades, Chinese people have been only focusing on developing ourselves, how to be more resilient, how to be reliant on ourselves, and how to rejuvenate the Chinese culture, Chinese nation. And with that spirit, I'm sure our people, our country can definitely continue to grow because it's not looking for to compete with others. It's more like how to make ourselves independent and strong. And now there are more policies to make everyone has the equal right to have a better living standards, have better education, have better employment. I have so much confidence in myself, in my own culture, and in my own country, and I really hope this common prosperity can be brought to the entire world. Either you are from developing nations, developed nations, everybody should have the right to have better living standards. And it's so sad to witness the imperialism, neoliberalism has been exploiting and taking the rights away from their people. So I think there's an alternative way for development that can actually bring common prosperity for everyone in the world. Not just to developing nations like ours, but also to common people in the West. Because I think the common citizens, common Americans, common New Zealanders, common Europeans are also being deprived of the right of improving their living standards by the elites, by their ruling class.
There's BRICS. BRICS can help change that.
Hope so. Fingers crossed. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah. So that was a great prediction, Li Jingjing. It was very cool. It was a pleasure having you, Li Jingjing. It was wonderful being able to interview. We should definitely do this next time.
Sure. If there's any topics about China you're interested to know, let me know in advance. I can prepare. And I'm sure there will be more chances to chat with you in 2024.
Absolutely. So, Li, before we go, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Twitter by searching my name, Jingjing_Li. This is my family name. Jingjing is my given name. And by searching this name, you can also find my YouTube channel. Or if you like to watch shorter videos, you can find me on TikTok, Reddit, or even Substack. So, yeah, this is where you can find me.
Well, thank you for coming on, Li Jingjing. It was a pleasure having you. We should definitely do this again sometime. I just want to say to you, thank you for coming on my show. It was a pleasure having you. And I just want to say to everybody, Happy New Year. Please go and check out Li Jingjing's work and go follow her YouTube channel and go follow her on Twitter. She's very fantastic. She's one of the best people when it comes to talking about China and explaining its politics. And she's very good at multipolism. You'll have a great time. So please go give her the like and subscribe and the support she deserves. And please, everyone, remember to like and subscribe to this video. Thank you for joining the Welsh Republic Podcast 142 with Li Jingjing. And everybody take care and God bless you all. Remember to like and subscribe and share this video. Take care, everyone.